about challenges or favorite failures in family.
I've been thinking about this one all week. So first, I'm going to say cheers to you. I'm having my steeped coffee.
Cheers. My coffee's inside, but in spirit, just cheers to you.
And I'm gonna live true to my words and create a safe, brave space for you to speak freely here. So here's the thing: you're a dad, clearly.
Yes.
One of the things I admire about you is you can't be wrong. You're the only dad they have. You've already won.
That's good.
Because I always say this to people: if you can look in the mirror and you're happy with what you see on any level, your parents did good.
Yeah.
They did amazing.
That's good. Yeah.
So you're in good shape. So please, I'm super excited. Tell me, in whichever order you want, either a past challenge that set you up for future success, or your favorite failure. I'm really interested to dig into this one. You've been thinking about it on Twitter.
I could go a lot of directions. For context, I'm 40 years old. My children are 12 and 8. My parents are still married. They're about ready to celebrate their 50th anniversary. I met my boy's mom at 16. We got married at 21. We were married for 16, 17 years, now divorced, co-parenting kids. So when you think about challenges and diversity and, just difficulty, obviously there's things that are faced with being a father of young children. There's things that are faced with going through divorce. And there's a lot of grace in my life, right, with having parents that are still married. So it is difficult to know which direction to go, because it's really important to me that I say honorable things about my boy's mom and honorable things about my parents, because usually when we talk about family challenges, a easy path is to point the fingers. Oh, I was really challenged when my wife divorced me. Or it's really challenging the way that my dad did this or my mom did this, and I've had to overcome these challenges. I feel like that's an easy path. So in light of that, here are a couple challenges that come to mind. When it comes to my father, Gary Wayne Utile, he is an all-time human being. I make the joke all the time that angels in heaven just look at Gary Utile and they're like, God, really? That was possible? That you could be that? So one of the biggest challenges for me is just to recognize the level by which my father operates as a human, from a spiritual perspective, an emotional perspective, a physical perspective, a financial perspective. Spiritually, my dad gets up at early in the morning and spends time reading the Bible and praying every morning, and he's done this for over 50 years. That's a very lofty and high bar to try and match. If my dad is my hero and he's the example of my life and he's my blood and I'm his offspring, and look at what he does spiritually, wow, that is a lofty thing to achieve. Emotionally, my dad is very sturdy and dependable. He is not he does not have a short fuse. He is not live wired. He does not go manic. Everything is very restrained and disciplined emotionally. Again, I compare that to my life, and I have a tendency to be very intense. And so again, emotionally, I'm looking at my father and I'm like, man, that's tough. Just the consistent feeling of okay, this is the example that was before me. Am I able to match that? Can I mature and grow into that? Physically, my dad has never been overweight his entire life. He works as a carpenter, general contractor, still today, swinging a hammer, using nail guns and saws, building homes that people live in. He's always had the desirable body for all of his age, whether he was in his 20s, 40s, or today at 67. Anybody in their 50s, 60s, 70s would be so grateful if they could have his health. Me, I've struggled with my weight and my health my entire adult life. So again, being the son of Gary Utile, physically, there's a serious thing for me to run after. I have a goal, but I can sometimes feel it's a real challenge. And finally, I mentioned financially. My dad's never gone into debt, never spent above his means, never jacked up credit cards, doesn't buy vehicles on credit. Everything is cash. It's been that way my entire life. We went out to eat just for birthdays and we got water, not soda. Um, we didn't really do any expensive vacations, camping in tents, not because my parents weren't accumulating wealth. He just made a decision in his life not to spend beyond his means. That has not been my personal experience, especially with the different financial things that go into being a tech entrepreneur with early startups. So when I think about challenges or favorite failures, I think it's important for me to say, okay, I'm graced with this man as a father and with an amazing relationship. We spend a lot of time together on a weekly and monthly basis. And these are all the areas that he has achieved phenomenal, consistent, dependable success in his life, financially, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so one of my challenges is recognizing that that's possible. I can achieve these types of things if I am disciplined and make the decisions that he makes, at least something similar. And so a favorite failure is just to be reminded over and over again, like, okay, so I'm not measuring up to my potential, but I have somebody and his peers and other mentors in my life that are examples. So now I'll go to my mom. You know, my mom is one of the hardest working, most relational people. She's learned to manage her intense demeanor, that would be categorized as like manic, right? She just go, Energizer Bunny nonstop. Everywhere she goes, she's making best friends. I took her to the Giants game last Monday. I mean, she knew everybody's name, 3 people deep, all around. She knew about their kids and their grandkids. I mean, she is a relational beast. And so I think for me growing up and being like, wow, you can build relationship like that, and not looking at any of the critical sides of that, because obviously there's critiques on anybody's strengths. Almost every weakness is just a strength overplayed. So I'm not going to talk about how sometimes her relationships can be a strength that's overplayed, but just the strength of that, like I've had to learn, okay, that's possible. I can make people feel welcome. I can make people feel loved. I can care for other people. I can ask them questions and listen when they answer. Like that's a possibility. And so living my life as an adult, watching her, or the way that just never stops, right? Like she always is doing something. She's, cleaning the house, making a meal, doing something that's productive. Like she doesn't sit down and stop. She's just a nonstop productivity machine. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, I don't always want to be productive. Like I want to rest, go play disc golf, ride my one wheel, snuggle with my kids. That's what I want to do. And so, I like to do those 3 things like it's my job. And, but I look at her and I think to myself, okay, like this consistent productivity is possible. And finally, I'll go family challenges on marriage stuff. When I was married for 16 years, I described myself first as a husband, then eventually as a father, second, when I had kids. So when I got a divorce, it wasn't because of something I didn't want to get a divorce. No matter how difficult our relationship was, I just have a real high uh, value for being a married man. And for staying married and keeping to the covenant. And so for me, like I did not ask her for a divorce. I tried to resist it for as long as I felt was reasonable, and then eventually, everybody has free will, and I have to be respectful of, you know, the way things have gone. That's been an incredible challenge. And what's been interesting about the challenge of divorce is the cycles of challenges that I continue to go through. So there's an initial challenge of like a life lived together for 16 plus years, children that we share, our whole life being intertwined. There was nothing that was separate, everything. And ripping those things apart and becoming individuals, challenging. And then as seasons go on, you face new challenges. When she introduces a new relationship, I introduce a new relationship, or we may not be able to be together talking about co-parenting. And so maybe there's some friction in terms of like, oh, this is challenging. And the big challenge for me was an identity challenge. I describe myself as a husband first over everything else. I was a husband before being an entrepreneur. I was a husband before being a father. I was a husband before being a technologist. So that had also come with an enormous challenges of like breaking myself back down, reminding myself I am Ian Matthew Utile. I am who I am without the need for anybody else involved. I don't need to be married. I don't need to be a father. I don't need to be this or that in my career or in my hobbies. I am who I am, and I'm at peace with who I am. That's been an incredible challenge. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about when it comes to challenges, is the challenge of having such incredible parents that set a tone of a life well lived and are still living that life, and recognizing the ways that I'm not measuring up to modeling those things from time to time, and saying, okay, this is a failure I can overcome. And the challenge of like going through divorce and doing my best to talk about that, think about that, even, restraining my own thoughts in order to think about, okay, it's not about my disappointment. It's about who am I, who have I been, and who am I becoming? If I'm to be married again, what kind of husband will I be? What areas did I cause a relational breakdown? How did I not create an environment that allowed us to have a thriving relationship? And not that everything is on me, but the parts that are on me, how can I be mindful of that, overcome these failures in family and these challenges to experience, greater grace moving forward? So those are my thoughts. A little bit longer than I anticipate on talking, but those are my thoughts on challenges, failures around family.
That was a lot, and it was helpful. I think a lot can be taken. I took a lot from that. The piece that I truly loved, all of it, but the piece that really resonated was particularly at the end. What I did, because that's the only things we can control. What we are responsible for.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the great litmus test of intent. The moment you decide that you're going to do something, whether it be, I'm just going to be a great father, I'm going to be a great husband, I'm not going to be bitter.
Yeah.
The moment you make that decision and you commit, it's almost as though you cannot fail.
Yeah.
Because if you take responsibility for your pieces and you're constantly checking in and you're saying, what can I do? It's repellent to anyone who wants that to break down, because they immediately out themselves as that individual that wants drama.
Yeah.
Because if you're already committed, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is how I'm going to approach it. No matter what happens, I have this North Star. And that North Star is, I'm going to be a great husband. I'm going to be a great father. Or I'm going to be the best. I'm going to do it the best way I know how. And I'm going to be comfortable with that. And no matter what you do, I may not like it, and I may have to take exception to it sometimes, but I'm not going to be bitter over it. I just think that is really the leadership by example. And it never, like in my experience, just never fails if you truly embrace it. So I love that you took that ownership. And I'll close with this. I had someone say this once, and it always stuck with me. They said, I hear people talk a lot about this word freedom. So, but what I found is when many people say freedom, what they really mean is anarchy. I want to do what I want to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't like. So I think, taking that responsibility in that real way it's noble.
Yeah.
And I find that in life, you follow that path, you will be rewarded one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate those comments, particularly on the subject of marriage and parenting. After divorce, it can be a challenge. So I appreciate you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. That was good convo. Gabe and Ted, why don't you come back in and we will wrap up our YouTube live stream.
Yep.
So, Gabe, you've been off for the longest. Any input you have on Ted's interview of Nigel or Nigel's interview of me?
I would say it's good for me to learn because I'm young. Haven't really made it that far yet, and some of the family talk you guys have just had. But it's good to learn, and then learn from what everyone else has done.
Yeah. How about you, Teddy?
I enjoyed it. I appreciated your vulnerability, Ian, and Gabe. To me, you're the standout star. You're really overperforming. Not that I had low expectations, or maybe. Anyways, I've really enjoyed everything you had to share. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to next week. Yeah, advice that's been
Thursday.
helpful, and advice that's
2 days from now, Thursday. Yes. That happens.
Not tomorrow. Thursday. This Thursday. Yeah, tune back in this Thursday. It's going to be awesome. We're going to share about. I'm thinking right now, what advice have I taken or given that really sucked, and what have I done that's actually been helpful? I am truly enjoying these conversations. Yeah. I really am. I'm learning so much about each of you, and I think with each lesson session, I feel like I'm growing into a better human. So thank you all for that.
Yes.
Genuinely.
Yeah. I definitely feel that too. And just as we wrap up, we're live broadcasting right now to the Attention Live YouTube account by video through Zoom, which is basically our chance of just being vulnerable and just being like, hey, here's the process of doing these 4 interviews. Today, I interviewed Gabe. Gabe interviewed Ted. Ted interviewed Nigel. Nigel interviewed me. And as we went live, for instance, Nigel started the interview with me 16 minutes ago. I'm broadcasting live to, you can see there's the YouTube link. This goes to Ian Utility's YouTube account. I'm creating an NFT. I'm broadcasting live on Amazon's Echo devices, and I'm broadcasting live just audio with an image over it on YouTube. And so that's part of why we're doing these Attention Live Sonic streaming conversations. We are coming together to do 4 individual interviews to use our product, create content on these platforms, create NFTs, and make sure that we're in a consistent pattern of doing so. And for those that are watching live or for those that watch the archive, we hope that you enjoyed it. And again, we hope that we made you laugh and smile and maybe think a little bit about some of the things that we've shared. So I'm going to end the live stream through YouTube right now. We'll be back again on Thursday at 8 a.m. Well, we've actually been starting about 15 minutes in. So maybe 8:15 a.m. on Thursday, Pacific Standard Time. If you're over on the East Coast like Nigel is, then we're looking at 11:15 a.m. And next week, that's where I'll be. I'll be in Puerto Rico for our conversations next Tuesday and Thursday. And so Nigel and I will be on the same time zone. And, yes. But this Thursday, I might be at the treehouse. I might be down at Capitola Village on my one wheel, floating between the little frame like I did recently. We'll see. We never know where I'm going to be because I never know where I'm going to be. And until next time, have a very